Hey friends, I'm back for another Instagram Live, and I really sort of felt like God was urging me to talk about this subject today, so I'm diving in even though I'm a little nervous. So here it goes. I have some notes, but just bear with me. All right, I want to talk about justice. That seems to be the word of the day after what happened yesterday, and I'll just start here. George Floyd was an image bearer. He was beloved by God. He was created in his image, and his death was a horrific act of violence, of sinful human nature. It was murder. Maybe not premeditated or intended, but murder is what it was. Yesterday, the man who killed him was found guilty of that murder, and we know that earthly justice will now be served. It doesn't bring him back. It doesn't ease the pain for his family or the nation, but earthly justice does matter. And I think that's important to talk about as Christians. Just to be clear, the definition of justice is simply someone getting what they deserve. And I think sometimes justice, when we're thinking about it, it can sound cold sometimes. After all, people like Derek Chauvin are also image bearers. God also loves them. But the Bible makes it clear that God is a God of justice. He is just. In Isaiah and other places, he says, I am a God of justice. And Christians in the Bible are commanded to learn to do good, seek justice, and correct oppression in Micah 6:8. Now, sometimes I think Christians are so focused on being nice or showing love that they forget the biblical call to truth, to goodness, to justice. You can show love and still speak truth. You can show love and still pursue justice. I will never forget this. Last year I had Rachel Denhollander on the podcast, and Rachel Denhollander is the woman who led the charge against Larry Nassar in the USA Gymnastics scandal. And I was so honored to speak with her. And in our conversation, I brought up at the end of her testimony when she offered him forgiveness and she prayed and she said, she hoped for Larry Nassar's salvation. I mean, I thought that was a beautiful moment. And she really called me out right then and said, a lot of the Christian publications have focused on this a lot, but what about the other vast majority of my testimony, which was about pursuing the full sentence for Larry Nassar, about him getting the justice that he deserved for all the things that he did? Why isn't anyone focusing on that? And she really got me there, because I realized that's exactly what I was doing. I was so unconcerned with the justice and so concerned with her forgiveness, but actually both are equally important to God. And so she pursued full biblical and earthly justice with authentic Christian love at the same time. And I think that's something that we can forget about. So I just want to talk about 3 things that we know about justice. Number 1, it reflects the heart of God. Over and over in the Bible, God promises justice and commands us to pursue it. Number 2, we're called to pursue justice and do that for those around us. It's not just about repaying wrongs, but also ensuring that the most vulnerable among us are able to live well and are provided for, because guess what? Every single person is an image bearer of God, and we have that in our hearts to protect them and care for them. And that's where, people more think of social justice, but the truth is that social justice is really just biblical justice. The original justice comes from the Bible, and the heart for justice that so many of us have comes from God, because he put that in our hearts, because we are his image bearers. We have these characteristics of God inside of us because we are his image bearers, which I just think that's super cool. Number 3, if your faith is healthy, justice will be a natural effect. Tim Keller says, yes, our sins are put on Jesus, but his righteousness is put in us. So if we're Christians, pursuing justice really isn't a choice. I mean, it is, but it's a no-brainer. It's an innate characteristic from the heart of God that we have within us. And if we are not concerned with taking care of the poor, the vulnerable, the widow, the immigrant, the most vulnerable people in our society, ensuring that they are living lives of dignity, then there's something wrong with our faith. We've got an unhealthy spirituality going on there. So if these are not top priorities for you as a Christian, and you find yourself not taking action and not seeking solutions, whether that be personally or through some kind of policy, think about what that means about your faith, and are you taking the Bible seriously, and all of those things. I guess the last couple things I want to say is, George Floyd's family yesterday got some justice, but we know earthly justice is never going to be enough. I mean, never. It's not possible. Think of all the horrific things that happen in this world, and there's no way that any earthly justice could ever rectify those things. But what we do know is that God is going to I just completely lost my place. But as God says in Ezekiel, every living soul belongs to me. So that's George Floyd's soul, that's Derek Chauvin's soul, that's my soul, that's your soul. And knowing that God has our souls, we have a choice to make. Because later, when God makes heavenly justice, as he promised, it will be the real thing. It will be the whole thing. And in Ezekiel, he also says, I will tear down the wall you have covered with whitewash, and I will level it to the ground so that its foundation will be laid bare. God is not playing around when it comes to justice. He has promised that his words of justice will come true, and he cannot lie. So Christians, I guess I leave you with this message to celebrate justice, do justice, and seek justice wherever you are. Thanks for listening. If you have any thoughts on what I've said, I would love to hear them in the comments, and I will talk to you next time.